Ropes N Riffs podcast with your host, John Kiernan.
I feel like this interview is a long time coming with the one and only Vicious Vicki. How's it going over there?
Hey, I'm great. I'm great. I'm toothless and I'm drinking my coffee. So far, good start.
See, you're saying you're toothless, but I think anyone you've ever been in the ring with would say that you are fully 100% toothed and dangerous. So
Yeah, there you go. I got to live up to the vicious moniker.
So there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about, right? Obviously, with your themes, with your entire career, everything you've been doing. And I think anyone that's followed your career should just understand like where you've come from to now. Even when I was asking you before about, oh, what is the most recent photo of you? You're like, oh, use the TNA ones. It's like, TNA? That's so cool, man. How did that come to pass?
Hell yeah. So yeah, those are like my newest promo pictures and they're like my favorite. So I'm like very like keen on using those. But yeah, first and foremost, TNA was an amazing experience. I was super, super grateful to be there, but just everybody backstage was just amazing. But I had been in touch with, a couple people that worked there, and it was just one of those things. I was a local, and they gave me a shot and brought me in, and I did my duty essentially for the night. But I'm hoping to be back there and be able to kind of show them a little bit more of what I got. So.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate TNA a lot. And, I would say that just with all of the wrestling out there now, even just talk about the last 20 years, talk about the last 10 years, the last 5 years, I think a lot of people really underestimate what TNA brings to the table and what they've brought to the table for years, especially when it comes to the world of women's wrestling. With women's wrestling, I've always believed that they've been a champion of that, even before a lot of other promotions really started to highlight it. Like you've had them with the women's tag team titles years before anybody else started doing it. Yeah. And for them to bring you in, that must feel like a massive accomplishment.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was always a goal. When you start this crazy business, you kind of put yourself in there and like, okay, what do I want to accomplish by year 5, year 3, year 2? You kind of set it out. At least that's what I did. And that was always a big goal for me. And I agree. I think they, glorified women's wrestling for the longest time, even when the bigger companies didn't, and just to be a part of that and the growing roster that it is now, even having people that I've, touched on the indies there as well. It's super cool. And it's hopeful. And there's some weird little portal there that leads to the WWE. So.
And it's interesting too that you mentioned it's like people that you may have worked with before, people that you've kind of like shaken hands with within the industry. I think we're seeing a lot more of that synergy throughout the industry too. And even with me, with people that I've worked on themes with, it's so crazy to see that, okay, all of a sudden they're just from the indies. Now they're going to AEW, they're in WWE, they're in TNA. It's just really cool to see that in 2024, going into 2025, we're seeing that there's so much like movement within the wrestling industry. At least that's how it feels to me.
Oh yeah. No, I agree 100%. I think it's more so becoming attainable than it was 10 years ago. I think now is the time, now is the hot spot for pro wrestling, and I'm really lucky to be part of it right now. Wanted to do this my whole life, and I feel like, no pun intended, the time is now.
The thing is too, not only have you wanted to do that, but something I found out about you recently, and especially with something you're currently working on, is also, we are Ropes N Riffs. We are talking about both wrestling and music. You also have a track coming out. I had no idea that you also used to be a vocalist, and you're starting that back up too, it seems like.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I was always into like acting and theater and just anything that required me to entertain, dancing. And for the longest time I did, like, I was always the chorus, I was always the lead, I did like the lead in the plays, and I'm talking like elementary school, middle school, and high school. Like, I was always a part of those things. High school I started getting out of things just because I started getting into trouble. But my whole life I just always did that. On top of being an athlete, I was a softball player for like 20 years. So basically, I had written things over the years, like books and books of like lyrics and thoughts that come to mind, and just creatively like using the chatter I call in my brain for good. And a couple years ago, I started just kind of messing around with like GarageBand and like being like doing my thing, just trying. It's an outlet, we all know this.
Of
It's a
yeah.
form of an outlet. And I'm sitting there for hours putting this music together and pressing these buttons and mixing this with that and this and that, and I love it. And then I, put out something like 4 years ago. It was just bubblegum poppy, having fun, whatever. And then, I like the rock sound. That's really my sound. Like I can do things with that. So I kind of, started exploring, I'll say, my voice a little more, and I stopped singing for a while. So I was like, okay, wow, this is difficult. You forget it's a muscle that you have to use. And, recently, last couple months, I started like doing my vocal exercises again, like really trying to see if I can do it. And I recorded something. I think I could do better, but it was okay, and I worked with somebody, to kind of help me master and get it together. Darren Fisher of These Wolves and Reality Suite actually hooked me up with the guy to, have him like edit my stuff and take a look at it. So yeah, it's exciting, it's something new. I figured with my following too, and like having a brand of pro wrestling, I can use that to maybe grow something else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Darren on there too, because Darren's also killing it with Reality Suite, all the music he's been putting out. And, he's done a couple entrances, but he's also done a lot of renditions of people's themes, which are all really cool. Like the Liv Morgan one, the Hangman Page one. He's been doing some banger stuff too. So good person to link up to
Yeah,
with that. That's awesome.
for sure, for sure. I love the MJF one. That's probably one of my favorite ones. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
I feel like the MJF one needs even more play, and I would love to see it show up in AEW. And I don't know if this is just me and just kind of hearing it in my head, because when I originally heard the MJF theme, I had heard it in passing, obviously on the
Sure.
show. Then when I heard his version, it sounded so professional. I was like, oh, that's the version that they use live. It was only after a while that I went back and listened, and I'm like, oh, it's not.
Yep.
So yeah, I would love to be able to see AEW bring his version in a little bit more, because everything from just the production of it to the rock version, even if it's just like a one-off, man, it sounds like chef's kiss,
It
top shelf.
really is. It's really good. It's really good.
So let's talk a little bit about your themes too, because
Mhm.
you obviously having that mind for music too, that creative spark, you've had this brand as Vicious Vicki for quite some time. And when I started to become familiar with you, it was very much the Italian side of everything. You'd come out with the jersey colors, everything like that. And, I think your evolution has really, you have elements of that, but it's leaned a little bit less into maybe the mafioso side of what you do and more into your personal story. Not I'm Italian, but more I'm Vicki.
Mhm.
When did that transition happen for you? And what were some of the thoughts in your head that said, I'm going to go away from this and tend to lean more into me personally as a performer?
Yeah. So I think for me, I've always had that like Italian swagger and that, cheetah print and like that is
It'll
me.
never go
Yeah, that is
away.
me. I mean, like that's why I was like pointing behind me on like the Italian flag, the cheetah print, like it's behind me, it's me. But
Yep.
doing that for so long and we started working together, nailed exactly what I was looking for. Because I was looking for that like the gondolas and like the like, oh, like she's Italian, but also like she's hard, she's badass, she's gonna kick your ass, like like that hard rock, because I love hard rock. It was literally the perfect mix of what I was looking for. So thank you.
Yeah.
That song's forever in my heart. Quick side story: I was at ISPW and I was doing and it was in the men's rumble, and I had just got my new song that we'll talk about, my new theme song, and but the promoter was like, "Can you just try something for fun?" And I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "Can you just come out to your old music? I just want to see if like, because everyone knew that done, like
Yep.
it was just everywhere I went, people knew it was me right off the rip." So I was like, "All right, screw it, let's have fun with it." Freaking easy it. I was like, "All right, I guess you were right." So it did its job for sure. I will say. I still have it on my playlist. It pops up every once in a while. I let it rock because I liked it. I really did. But anyway. I'm not putting you over, right? The evolution for me was just about, like you said, kind of steering away from just being labeled as the Italian girl. I wanted to do the whole mafioso and kind of dive into that whole thing. But I didn't know that moniker was already taken when I thought of it. So I kind of just jumped ahead and like was like, oh, Mafiosa. I started doing these things. And I'm like, oh, there's someone who does that. Okay, never mind. So I kind of creatively, you think you come up with things on your own, but you see, wrestling, like you'd be surprised at how many people come up with things. Which is why I love my name, Vicious Vicki, because it's original, it's indie, it really is. It screams indie wrestling, but I don't know any Vicious Vicki. I don't know anyone. You know what I mean? Like I'm the one of one, and that's what I want to be. Um, but going through like real life things and traumas and turmoils and addiction and recovery and abuse and all these things throughout my life, I always felt like I was dancing with the devil, And so I kind of went from I'm like I said, I'm creative and the music and the wrestling and all these things, and I'm always looking to up my ante. So I had this idea last year of let me go dark, let me, you know, once in the career, I think every wrestler goes dark. It's just the thing. So I really dove into like dancing with the devil and being the devil's daughter, and like really embracing
Yeah.
wearing the mask and the deep, sinister, demonic stuff. It was completely unlike me. So you go from this fist pumping, badass Jersey chick wearing cheetah print to this devil girl. Like it just was.
And real quick, just to kind of interject there before we go, I think you went from Vicious, which was the theme we worked on. Then there was an intermediary one, and then the Downstait one, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So, before I was trying to think of like something that was like royalty free or like something that was more so just like an ambiance,
Sure.
more so than a song at first. Just so it was more creepy and not necessarily a song. But then I stumbled across Onlap. I think they're French Canadian, and there was a song called "Falling in the Dark," and I kind of like mixed it myself. I reached out to them first because I heard the song. Me and Rob listened to it. I was like, it was literally what I was trying to portray in lyrics, and the music was awesome. So I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. And I still love that, so I loved it because it had the like ambiance in the beginning that I kind of put there, of them like the like harmonizing and stuff. So I reached out to them. I sent them an email. They're super cool. They were like, yeah, like use it. It's all yours. Like do what you want to do with it. Like have fun with it. I was like, awesome. Got permission from the band. Can't go any better than that. So I ran with that for a while. I even sent them like the copy that I made when entrance, like that I cut up their song. They were totally cool with it. Shout out to Frank from OnLap for that. So, used that for a while, loved it. I even bought like, my own fog machine because I'm on the indies and no one's going to do what I want them to do.
Yeah.
So I bought a fog machine. I bought candles. I had people walk out with me. Like I really, really wanted to be like the female Undertaker Kane kind of deal.
Yeah.
It worked. People were into it. I was really enjoying it. But the kids, man, I'm just for some reason super with the kids, and they would come up to me at shows and be like, "Are you gonna be like this forever?" And I'm just like, "No," like I was like, "Oh."
I promise. One other thing that was funny too was I remember watching a walkout video with you when you would, I forget if it was like a month after you debuted that intermediary, and one of the announcers was just like, "There's Vicki, taking time to get to the ring again." And I was like, it's so funny too, because I don't know if it was a dig or just them being funny or whatnot, but with your new theme and with the previous, it kind of goes into it in kind of what you would assume is like the right amount of time. Where that middle one, it gave you even more of, like you said, that Undertaker vibe, where it's like, okay, cool, it's brooding, you got a minute or so, and then you go down. But I'm sure that when it comes to themes too, because I'm only on the other side. I'm only on the side of writing them and then seeing you guys walk down.
Right.
But I'm also sure that when you go to events, there's got to be something in the heads of the promoters and you guys saying, okay, cool, this is the amount of time we allot for you going down to the ring.
Yeah, so sometimes they give us like a time frame where it'll be bell to bell. Sometimes it's entrances with bell. So the shows that I was doing was bell to bell, so I didn't have a limit on my entrance. Promoters were always cool with me like doing because they like appreciate the creativity, and I feel like they were always trying to like define it for me, which was kind of weird. Like, I think promoters are so like, oh, new, like not trying to crap on anyone, but it's just how it is. We're little action figures, But, a lot of people were just trying to figure out like what I was or what I was about or what I was trying to do. And for me, it was more so just trying to like go into a creative outlet and do something different. So I did this whole devil thing. I did this whole demonic thing. I, went through girls, did my thing. And then, like I said, the kids were what did it for me. The kids were kind of what reeled me back into reality, if you will. And I loved the flames, right? So like I always loved flames, Linkin Park. I got it right here. Like I just always loved fire. And I decided for me to kind of like start shifting away from that demoness supernatural character so I could be more of a human. I decided to kind of like pull everything from real life to explain. It might be too smart for some people, but to me, it was creative. I think if I was on television weekly, people would be like, oh, that was so cool. To try to explain like the demonic aspect of my career, I had to kind of literally explain it in a promo. Like, what happened? Why did you go from possessed to now you're somewhat normal again? So I pulled everything from my real life and said, you know what? I'm the flame that never burns out. I don't give up. I've been through so much in my life, so much adversity, and I'm still standing tall and still on top. And like I said, I always use my real life issue as dancing with the devil. So that's why I put that in my character at one point, which then leads us to the next theme, which was with Downstait. And I just like to evolve. We were talking about that a little earlier. Like I like to evolve. I like to change. I like to be better than I was 2 months ago. I like to look different. I don't want to be like everyone else. I don't want to look like everyone else. And sometimes we just do. It just works out that way. But I really pride myself on trying very hard to be different. And not many people were using Downstait at the time, or, they were just a great band that I listened to way back in the day before they were, you know what I mean? Like I always loved their stuff. Like I did find them back in the day through WWE, but it allowed me to kind of experience them.
Right.
Or explore them more, should I say. When you find a band you like or a song you like, that's just how music works, right? So I reached out to Justin and I just said, hey, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. This is my character. This is who Vicious Vicki is. They asked me for a couple songs that I love or whatever. Told them Linkin Park's my favorite band in the world. They kind of threw that in there, which was really cool. And yeah, and now the song itself is a representation of dancing with the devil, a representation of rising above all the adversity in my real life, professional life, everything. And it even has, I also asked for like a spot in the song where I can do something like, how Cody has the whoa, like I was very in like cognizant of like, need this, like on my entrance, like, what can I do here? What can I do here? And they nailed it, man. I was very happy with it. Okay.
Yeah.
You go.
And it's an awesome song too. And the thing is, like, when you think about your entrance theme, you have to be able to have something where there's different points for you to do something, like you said, whether it's getting the crowd with you or whether it's you striking a pose or something like that. It's all with the understanding of you being an entire brand, an entire vision
Exactly.
that people can get behind. And yeah, if anyone hasn't heard the Downstait music outside of their entrance themes, go check it out because it's amazing. And, with them being able to be as versatile as they've been over the years and be able to represent lots of different vibes and lots of different things, it's really cool to see the evolution through all of your themes too. And like you said, sometimes with your theme, it's not just about the visuals. It's about what's the story of this person? What's the story of this character? And I always go back to this, that, people are interesting. Like an individual is something that I don't think can be replicated because everybody has different experiences. Everybody has come from somewhere else. Everybody's life path has shaped them in a certain way. And even though we share a lot of commonalities, there are those little things that you can draw from. And sometimes they're not so little.
Right.
Sometimes, like you said, they're your success stories about, recovery, about your story here, and about these different elements that just make you Vicious Vicki.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's important. And a lot of people, to me personally, a lot of people forget that in wrestling. Like we're all something. We're all somebody, right? Like we're all humans outside of our characters and what we are. But, you know, it's been told to me time and time again over the years that like be a version of yourself with the volume turned up, you know, and I feel like I did that in the beginning. I feel like I did that in the middle, and I feel like I'm doing that now. I feel like there's all different versions of me, and I feel like the different versions of me are all derived from different parts of my life. And I feel like the form I'm in now, I don't even feel like the form I'm in now is my final form. I still feel like I'm evolving. You know, I still feel like there's room to grow and evolve and all that. So, you know, it's just about finding it, you know, and figuring out what works and what doesn't.
And at different times in your career too, and just different times in your life in general, there will be little things that amplify different parts of that personality too. So the Italian side could always come back in, but it's always going to be there. We're both Jersey people, you know, it's always there, guys. So that'll always be there, whether you're wearing the flag or not. But, you know, this really represents where you're going, you know, as of now. And I think it's a really good representation of the entire character of Vicious Vicki, and not just the entire character, but the person. And it's always great to be able to hear about the boys in Downstait too, because they do a lot of themes. You know, I got to work with them on the Major Players theme, and just hearing all of the way that they work, hearing all the themes that they've done, they're great people to work with too, just in general. I always pride myself on trying to be flexible and trying to be easy to work with. And I love working with wrestlers. I love working with other musicians. And I remember when we did the Major Players theme, it was literally Justin and I going back and forth and Darren going back and forth. And that theme was done in like 3 days.
Wow.
You know, it was like the super easiest
Yeah.
process. And the music came out great. And obviously yours came out great as well.
Oh yeah, no, they were really good with like, hey, the back and forth, like, hey, do you like this? Hey, do you like that? Hey, do you like this? And I was pretty good with like everything. There was like maybe one thing, but they nailed it.
Now, was there ever any intention on bringing in some of those earlier sides, like bringing in some more of the Italian vibe, or was it always like, hey, I do want it to just be more of like a harder edge like you have in the final product?
Yeah, I think I just kind of wanted to, I mean, I can't do away with my heritage, but I think I just kind of wanted to do away with labeling myself, you know,
Sure.
if I'm me. And, you know, the theme that I have now, I feel like could be used in any aspect of Vicious Vicki. There's no one or there's no like direction like, oh, like if I go heel, it'll work. If I stay baby,
Yeah.
it'll work. You know, which I think is very important. But also it's the story that's in it. I feel like because I created this story, which is from real life, like I keep saying, but I have this
Yeah.
story of Vicious Vicki and her evolution. It it allows me to kind of go in either direction. And I could also build on it too. So that was really important to me. I think the moniker that I have now is a true testament to my fighting spirit and my personality. You know, can it change again? Probably, because that's wrestling. But for right now, I'm hoping that it kind of just sticks with me for as long as I can, because now I'm kind of getting comfortable with my entrance. You know, I have this part where I make my way to the ring, and then there's just one part where, you know, they say rise, and I just put my hands out, and it just feels very regal and whatever. And I literally I'm one of those that I finally timed my entrance with the
Yeah.
song, you know. So I really feel that like it could go anywhere, but right now I'm very happy with it.
It was funny because I was talking to Lindsay recently,
Uh-huh.
Lindsay Dorado, and we were talking about the theme that we worked on together. And his whole thing was, you know, I'm not the traditional luchador, right? I have a little bit more of a ground
Mhm.
game. I try to base myself more in realism and things like that. Not that he was bashing any of the lucha style, but more like differentiating himself. And if you know his theme, it's a lot more like rough and
Mhm.
tough and a little bit more like hip hop
Yep.
based, right? And with that, it's a theme that he's used both as him being a babyface and a heel.
Mhm.
And, you know, I have a lot of wrestlers that come to me and they say, okay, well, I'm a heel, so let's go in this direction. And sometimes we do that, right? That's fine.
Right.
But I think you hit on this point of you can have a theme that instead of just representing that you're a bad guy or representing that you're a good guy, it's representing you. And what I always go back to is the Miz's theme
Uh-huh.
too. Again,
Uh-huh.
a Downstait
Uh-huh.
original. But if you think of like the lyrics and you think of how everything works, when he's a good guy, it's really great to see how much it shines him
Yep.
up. It's energetic, it's up, it's in your face. And when he's a bad guy, obviously it brings out those tendencies too.
Yep.
But those lyrics in the song, where I usually don't do a lot of lyrics because it gets in the way of the announcing, in my opinion, but those lyrics really frame up to speak about who he is and what he's bringing to the ring at that time. And so it's important sometimes, like you said, to think about not just, does this represent me as a good guy or a bad guy or a good girl or bad girl? It represents me and my character and my brand that I'm bringing to you guys.
Yeah, for sure. That's very well said. I agree 100%.
Now, you are talking about the flames on your gear, and you're talking about how you've always loved flames. Couldn't help but notice over the years, and you brought this up before, you have the flames on your wrist, very much a nod to one Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, of which I know we are both very big super fans of. They raised me, I know they raised you, and they just came back. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about your connection with the one and only Linkin Park.
Yeah, so super diehard. Literally, like, I love showing off my tattoo because I think it's so freaking cool. I got his name right here.
Oh, you even got the logo there too now.
Yeah, so I made it myself. So I made it my own. I didn't make it myself. Hold on.
Yeah.
I made it my own. So like instead of just getting the traditional flames, I was like, let me put like his name in there and the logo, whatever. Yeah, so Linkin Park, my sister in '99 was listening to them and I was just like, what was that? And I was like super young. And I remember like it was just like literally like music to my ears. Like it was just, I just connected with it and I loved it. And I remember my mom bought me my own hybrid theory because my sister wouldn't let me touch hers. So my mom bought me my own. And then it just was a forever, thing from there. Part of the LPU forever. Like just the whole nine. Even sitting on my from the tour, I got my jacket. Right.
I'm so jealous that you got to go. Oh man, they just came back and they got their new singer and everything. Man, I'm so jelly that you got to go.
So for me, it's like Chester's like my leader in wrestling, right? So like in the music world, it's Chester for me. I was a huge Linkin Park fan, and I am, don't get me wrong. But I was also a fan of Chester. So like I followed him through all of his music endeavors and things that he did and side projects and all that. So for me, that was like the worst of the worst thing that could have ever happened when that happened. I just remember where I was. I like fell to the floor. I was like sick. I almost threw up. Like it was just terrible. And I know that like for him, like I related to him with a lot of things like mental health and stuff like that. So I connected with him. Just on a personal level as well. Not that I knew him, but as a fan, you know people who are going through things. I always appreciated vulnerability from celebrities.
Of course.
And that's why I'm very open with my public and my fans, because I feel like that's what draws people to like me. And I'm not saying that's why I do it. I'm just saying it's something that a lot of people don't do. It's just being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and explaining why you go through things. So I always respected Chester for that. Fortunately, yeah, we know how that ended. But when it got to a point when Linkin Park finally like got back together, it was like, is this real? I'm like, is this really happening? Is this something that's like, is this gonna work? Is it not gonna work? It was very like, I don't think nerve-wracking, but like the biggest thing, for me was feeling like I was saying, like having celebrities who were vulnerable, putting themselves out there, and then being able to connect on that level for me was important, because not only am I connecting through the music and the lyrics and the creativity, I'm literally connecting with a person through real life experiences. And obviously we know like a lot of lyrics come from real life experiences. That's just how it is. Some people on the other hand are just super creative and can just come up with these things.
Right.
But for me, he was just like, the way he was able to sing, the way he was able to carry himself, the way he was able to be just this little guy, but this larger than life presence, to me, it was just like, it was mesmerizing. For me, with him, it's how I was with wrestling when I saw Stone Cold for the first time. Like it was very like, oh, like it just connects you. But to go to the new Linkin Park, that's what I started talking about for my freaking power went out. For me, I never saw them live until recently. And it wasn't because I didn't love them, because believe me, I did. I wish I could have been a VIP and got pictures with Chester and all that looking back, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But when I was growing up, before I was able to actually pay my own way, it was either wrestling or concerts. And Linkin Park didn't come around as often as we thought. They just didn't. They didn't come around this area that often. WWE did, and I was a big wrestling fan. So my parents, would be like, hey, let's go buy a ticket to wrestling, whatever. There was one funny story. My sisters went to go see Linkin Park at PNC in Homedale, I believe, in Jersey. And they had one extra ticket. So my sister's friend, my sister's husband's friend had 2 tickets or 3 tickets. And he asked my sister and her husband if they wanted to go to the Linkin Park concert. Mind you, we're all crazy super fans. It was my older sister's birthday, so my one sister was like, hey, I'll take this sister for her birthday. I was left out.
Oh,
I
no.
was so mad at them. They probably hate me to this day because I keep talking about it. This was in like 2013, I think. I was so mad at them. I did not call them. I cried. I was so mad. Me and my sisters don't fight either, like ever. But like I was so mad. I still am. But even Rob was like, "You want to ask your sisters if they want to go to Linkin Park?" I was like, "Hell no!" I was like, "We're going. Screw them."
You're like, this is revenge.
So that, always is in the back of my head. Like, but we didn't realize back then that PNC had lawn seating and maybe there were tickets available. Like, we just didn't do concerts enough. Like, my family didn't really do concerts like that back then. So, like, we didn't know there was probably resales or ways around it. We really
Sure.
truthfully did not know. I wish we knew that then. Whatever. So, Linkin Park starts posting these cryptic messages and things. And I'm just like, oh, what's this? And as soon as we were like prompted to go on YouTube, I was sitting, like Rob has a picture of me just like staring at like the beautiful ambiance that they have, and I'm just like, what is this? And I couldn't sit, I was standing. She comes out, and I'm like, I'll be honest, my first initial thing was, please don't let this be the new singer. Please don't let this be the new singer. I was like totally against it at first. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
Just because I don't want a new singer. Just don't be Linkin Park anymore. You can't. It was really weird. At first I'm like, no, I can't. I started crying. I was like, I don't like this. This is too much. But then I actually put my feelings aside for a second. I was like, just listen to her as an artist. Like, listen to her. Damn, she's good.
Yeah.
She's really good. And they announced this pop-up world tour, and I'm just like, oh my god, I have to go. Like, I have to go. I have my own money. Like, I can actually do these things now. Spent a lot of money to change my seats. Only resold one of the tickets I bought initially because I got on like the LPU pre-sale, so I was like just buying anything. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
shit, I don't want to sit that high. I think it's terrible. But I will say for me, I went to the concert. It was great. I was crying hysterically. Like Rob has a video of me. I was like sobbing. I was like, it's not him. It's not him. It was really difficult for me. Really difficult, and a lot of other people too. But I had fun. I rocked out. She killed it. I think she's a great fit. It's still a little weird to me. Like people have asked me a lot about this on this topic, and like they asked me like, well, what would you prefer, nothing, or a reemergence Linkin Park? And I was like, almost nothing, because I just feel like the re-releases and or the demos they're releasing and unreleased stuff was great to hear him.
Yeah.
But then you come out and it is Linkin Park, but it's not, because there's only like 3 of you left, and it's very, very sensitive. But I'm supportive of Mike. I know that Mike was and is the backbone of Linkin Park. I understand that. I don't fight people on that. I know he's a lot of the creativity behind the band. And I love Mike too. I always love Shinoda. It's very hard. It's very difficult. But I will say, listening to the new album of what has been released and seeing her live and seeing them live collectively, it was a really good experience. I look forward to seeing more. But again, if you're a big fan of a person and they're not there, my personal opinion, I think it's been 7 years, been almost a decade. They did right by him, in my opinion, in every way, as friends and as bandmates, and I think they're allowed to continue on. And I think he would want that for them.
That first interview that they did with Zane Uten, I think it was, where he kind of laid everything out, and the first performance they did where they first off had the new music they worked on. It was Mike, and then she came out, and then he was introducing everyone, and he's like, the role of Chester is all of you tonight. I was like, that to me really sold it, because I'm very much the same way as you, Linkin Park fan for years, and very much not just connected to the band, but also connected to Chester's lyrics and his vocals. And for me, when I heard that they were coming back and there were rumblings of a new singer, obviously my first thought was Mike's just going to do everything,
That's
but
what I thought. Yeah.
yeah, and I think most of us did. And when you see her come out on stage, I think the way they did that first concert where they had him up front, but it was an original song that they all did, there was no comparison. Like, it wasn't like they did In the End or Bleed It Out. And then
Right.
the first you were thinking of, it's not Chester. They had original music, so they showed you where it was going,
Yep.
and then they weaned you into it. And then
Yep.
I remember seeing the interview, and it seemed really holistic from the way that Mike was saying it, because from what I remember, I think he got together with the guitarist, and he was just like, if we get together again, there wasn't even a thought of getting the band back together, but he was like, if we did get back together, would you just be fine with whatever happens, basically? Like,
Right.
even though if people want us back. And he was like, dude, absolutely. And it seemed less like we need to get the band back because it's commercially successful, and more of we want to get the band back because we miss being with each other. And at that point, anything that came after that to me was just, okay, it makes sense. They want to do this. And, people could throw their hands up with the new singer. They can go ahead and throw their hands up with the new music if they chose to.
Yep.
But I think the whole approach, being as holistic as it was, really showed that they weren't coming back just to revive the brand of Linkin Park. They were like, hey, these are people that really loved working together, loved being together, loved making music together. And now she fits in with that new vision of the band.
That's perfectly put. And that's exactly what I've been trying to tell people that I talk to about it, is it's instead of us being selfish and wanting what we want, but that we can't have anymore. I think it's these are humans and people and creative people, and this was an outlet for them, and it was a big part of their life, and to tell them that they can't do it is kind of shitty. So I'm very supportive of it, and I think it'll be good. Again, it's always going to be weird, but it's someone was crapping on them because they said that song over each other, which isn't my favorite, but it's good. It's growing on me. People were like, oh, it's different. It's not Linkin Park. And Mike really did shut it down. I think he's just kind of getting sick of it. And I don't blame him. But he's kind of like Meteor and the Hunting Party. Listen to all our albums. They're all different. And even if you listen to Hybrid Theory and Meteor, all the songs are different. He's like, we've always been this way. And he's right. He's right. And that was their biggest thing, was that they were different. They did evolve. But then they go back to what sounds right. Heavy is the Crown and the Emptiness Machine. To me, I hear that. I can hear Chester on the tracks. It's almost like I can hear
100%.
So it's like they know what they're doing,
Yeah. And I think also that when I heard Chester in an interview years ago, they really expressed the fact that they wanted to expand what they did and just kind of really do what made sense for them. I remember he said this line, which made me really respect him more. He goes, yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of the heavy stuff. We've done the lighter stuff. We have lots of different directions, but I don't want to ever be a band that's limited by, oh, this is what we should be. If Katy Perry was down to hop on a song, we'd be like, yeah, let's have her on it. And to me as a creative and me as a musician, I'm sure to you as a creative too, having that kind of openness only brings out more sides of who you are and more things that you can do. So hearing that made even the music that came after Meteora and One Last and all that made it even more palpable for that, which I think in turn, years later, makes it even more palpable to say, Linkin Park's going in this new direction with Heavy as the Crown and all that. And I can totally get behind that. Now, I know you've worked with me. I know you worked with Downstait. I know you've worked with that. But because we're on the topic of Linkin Park, if Linkin Park comes to you and says, hey, you can use any song from our discography as an entrance theme, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's a bad question, but a good question. Well, my favorite song, one of my favorite songs by them, I would not be able to use as an entrance song.
And you know what? Real quick. I'll add to that real quick. You have you have two choices. One can be what personally would you love to do because it's your favorite song, and then the second one can be which one do you think would fit Vicious Vicki the best.
Okay, so one of my favorite songs is Somewhere I Belong, which is weird because it's mainly Mike on the track, but I just love their vocals and just the sound. They opened with that at the concert, and I was like, great song. For an entrance, that's tough. So when I was younger and I used to like backyard wrestle, it was Feint because it's like pumps you up. But I don't know if that would be it now. But I'll go with Feint. Feint or No More Sorrow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Faint is probably, like, I can hear Faint automatically as an entrance theme just from that, like, light intro into it
Mhm.
being super heavy. It's like, it's tailor-made to be an intro.
It is.
It's tailor-made to be an entrance theme.
And Heavy as the Crown is Feint 2.0 in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
Right?
Now thinking about it. Yeah. Man, it's so crazy to see the development of what they've gone through. And it's so crazy to see your development too. And, whenever I get to talk to you, one of the things I always appreciate about you is, how open you are, how transparent you are with the things that you've gone through and where you've gotten to today. And just the evolution, not just of you in wrestling, but as you as a person. And that's also got to be part of the evolution of your overall character and who you are. When people are listening to your entrance theme or they're seeing you wrestle, do they have that connection too with your story?
Oh yeah, people constantly ask me. First thing people ask me is where can I find this song? It's like eventually we'll get there, but all the time at every show, everyone's always asking me, where
Yeah,
can I find this song? Where can I find this song? Um, Secondly, I feel like people know, and fans have come up to me and tell me this, thank you for being open, thank you for being honest, thank you for being you, thank you for being vulnerable, like all the time. And I'm like, yeah, of course, like even like I put out something about like my teeth the other day. It's like, yeah, this is me. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, like I don't I try to be as open as possible in a world where you are essentially not yourself. Because I'm trying to follow a trend, but also make a trend and like cancel the stigma of like I have to be this character all the time. It's like, no, because
right,
that's not good for my mental health. Like, I'm going to be this character on television. And I'm glad that wrestling today is more open about that. They're more conscious of, or at least televised TV wrestling is more conscious of humans being humans and then going to work and being a character. Um,
right.
so I feel like for me, that was always my bread and butter was connecting with fans and the audience, just being myself and being able to do both and mix the two, and just being a good person. I don't want to lie to myself either, like I don't want to hide things. I'm just very open because I feel like one, I can help someone else. What if there's someone who's struggling with something that I'm thinking of and they don't want to talk about it? And it's like, oh, well, Vicious Vicki did. And it's like, oh, like it's little things, but
Yeah,
to me, it matters because if people didn't do that for me, then maybe I wouldn't be who I am today.
of course, yeah. Now, the big questions obviously are, you've been in wrestling for years now, but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface with Vicious Vicki. What's next?
Yeah. I was very lucky to do like I had a tryout in 2019. I was like a year into not even I was like 8 months into like actually taking shows, which was like, whoa, I'm not ready, but it was awesome. I've built relationships now with WWE, with TNA. I'm really trying to put myself out there, being on the PWI, these little things that might mean nothing to some people, they mean something to me. And I feel like now I'm older, I'm a little bit more wiser, not just in personal, but like in my professional career, I've seen some stuff. I've been mistreated in the world of wrestling, and I've been, you know, misled, and all these different things. And now I'm starting to figure things out and make relationships on my own. And I'm able to kind of see that the sky's the limit, and being in with these certain places, and just kind of being there and seeing it, and being given opportunities. The best I could do is just make the most of those opportunities and hope that they realize that I'm able to be molded, which I think is huge. I'm a sponge, and I really just want someone to kind of take me under their wing and make me essentially maybe one of the greats. I think it's very possible. I'm not cocky. I'm very confident. I think with the right training and the right um place, I think I could be really good.
And you mentioned the PWI too. Congratulations on being placed at 237.
Thank
Being
you.
on the PWI list is such an accomplishment. And, for anybody to be on that list is something that really shows and is a testament to the work that you've been putting in all the years too. when you saw your name on that list, or when you go back and you see your name on that list, what is your sense of accomplishment there?
Yeah. So last year I was 185, and then this year I was 237, and I'm just like, oh wow, like I'm still on the list. Like I wasn't like, oh, like I'm lower. I was like, no, I'm still on it. Like that's awesome. Just to be recognized for like the things that you've done, and it's not essentially for nothing. Like yeah, I'm doing it for reps, and I'm doing it to get my name out there, whatever. But like I'm also doing it because I want a contract. I want to be a wrestler. Like, I wasn't just something I thought of one day where I was like, oh, like that looks like fun. I should try that. It's like, no, I've been thinking about this since I was 3,
Right.
like I wanted to do it since I was like 3 years old. The fact that I'm able to do it is awesome, and I think that like having a list like that, whether you're on it or not, it doesn't mean you're not good or you're bad. That's just not how that works. But I think that I think it's just a matter of being able to continue on with that and have the world see that, like, hey, I deserve to be on this list.
Yeah, and the thing I love about the PWI list too is it seems like there's a lot of things in wrestling that people get hung up on, right? They get hung up on with, where someone is on the card and things like that. But I feel like with the PWI list and especially with the women's list in the PWI, it just seemed like there was a lot of positivity around people being featured and people being represented on there. And, I think it's a far cry from a lot of the things that we see where sometimes, and you said that you went from, I think it was 189 to 237 or 139. But the thing is, it's not a matter of your placement. It's the fact that you're on there. It's the fact that you're being highlighted. And it's the fact that, you're continuing to be able to show people who Vicious Vicki is. And the fact that you're able to show in this world of wrestling where there's so much talent and there's so many people in so many of these different spots, it just shows that people are still looking at you and saying Vicious Vicki is somebody that you need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think that like for me, it's important for me to continue to do that. I try to put myself out there and like show people what I'm made of, and I think the more opportunities I get, the more that I'm able to showcase that for sure.
That's awesome. Well, Vicki, thank you so much for your time today. It's always cool
Of course,
for
dude.
us to be able to chat, and I'm glad that I get to speak to yet another Linkin Park fan. That's always the coolest thing for me.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, we're gonna hopefully we get to link up at a concert one of these days for Linkin
Yes.
Park. They need to come back. We're willing it into existence now, and with the new singer, with the new music, they're absolutely going to. So
Oh, for sure. They'll be around.
so will we. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, dude. Thank you.